The Guadiana River, or Odiana, is an international river defining a long stretch of the Portugal-Spain border, separating Extremadura and Andalucia from Alentejo and Algarve. The river's basin extends from the eastern portion of Extremadura to the southern provinces of the Algarve. The river and its tributaries flow from east to west, then south through Portugal to the border towns of Vila, Santo, António and Ayamonte, where it flows into the Gulf of Cádiz, with a course that covers a distance of 829 kilometers. It is the fourth longest in the Iberian peninsula, and its hydrological basin extends over an area of approximately 68,000 square kilometers. Etymology: the Romans referred to the river as the Flumen Annus, the river of ducks. During the Moorish occupation and settlement, the name was extended and referred to as Guadiana, later passed on to Portuguese and Spanish settlers as the Guadiana, and later just Odiana. Since the 16th century, due to Castilian influences, the name has slowly evolved to take on the form Guadiana, a cognitive variation that developed from many Moorish Arab river place names using the prefix guad. Watershed: the Guadiana flows east to west through Spain and south through Portugal, then forms the Spanish-Portuguese border. It flows into the Gulf of Cádiz, part of the Atlantic Ocean, between Vila de Santo Antonio and Ayamonte. It is 818 kilometers long, of which 578 kilometers are within Spanish territory, 140 kilometers within Portugal, while 100 kilometers are shared between the two nations. About 82%, 55,444 square kilometers, of its basin is in Spain, while about 17%, 11,560 square kilometers, is in Portugal. Sources: the exact source of the river in Castilla-La Mancha is disputed, but it is generally believed to spring in the Ojos del Guadiana, Villarrubia de los Ojos municipal term, Ciudad Real province, Castilla-La Mancha, about 608 meters in elevation. A classic theory introduced by Pliny the Elder was that the river originated from the lagunas de Ruidera and divided into two branches, the Upper Guadiana and the Guadiana, while separated by a subterranean course. This legend developed from a misguided belief that the river appeared and disappeared over time, because of its subterranean tributary. In fact, no subterranean course exists, and the belief that the lagunas de Ruidera is the source is also controversial. Toponomically and traditionally, the Upper Guadiana, which runs from Viveros until Argamasía de Alba, had been identified as the main branch of the Guadiana, but even hydrogeological characteristics indicate that the Upper Guadiana may not be the principal river within the system. Another of the origin theories postulated that the Siguela and Zankara rivers were the sources of the Guadiana. Today, they are considered integral parts of the river's headwaters and important tributaries, but not necessarily the exact origin. The Siguela's source is in Altos de Cabreras and pertains to the Sistema Iberico at an elevation of 1,080 meters. Its course is 225 kilometers long, receiving contributions from the rivers Julon, Torrejón, Rianza Ares, Amaguillo and Zankara. The union of the rivers Siguela and Zankara permits the replenishment of the waters in the Tablas de Daimiel National Park, a wetland that was designated for protection by the Spanish government in 1973. Course: from its origin, spring runs from the southern Iberian plain in a direction east to west to near the town of Badajoz, where it begins to track south leading to the Gulf of Cádiz. The Guadiana marks the border of Spain and Portugal twice as it runs to the ocean, first between the river Car and Ribera de Juncos, then later from the river Chanca until its mouth. The river is not used to completely mark the boundary between the two states, between the Olivenza ravine and the Toliga ravine. The border still remains a disputed section claimed de jure by both countries and administered de facto by Spain. For the most part, the Guadiana is navigable from the Atlantic Ocean until Metola, a distance of 68 kilometers. North of Metola on the Guadiana is the highest waterfall is southern Portugal called Pulo de Lobo. The ecosystem has Mediterranean hydrological characteristics, including high variation in intra- and interannual discharge, large floods and severe droughts. This variability is a consequence of considerable variation in rainwater supply, averaging around an annual mean of 400 to 600 millimeters. The climate is semi-arid with an average annual temperature of 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. Estuary. The river empties into the Gulf of Cádiz between Ayamonte and Vila de Santo Antonio, the two highly touristic regions of the Algarve and the seaside of Andalucia. There it forms the salt marsh estuary. The estuary has a maximum width of 550 meters, and its depth ranges from 5 to 17 meters. Tides are semi-diurnal, ranging from 0.8 to 3.5 meters. Their upriver propagation is limited by falls situated 76 kilometers from the mouth at Moinho dos Canes. In the lower estuary there are nature reserves covering a total of 2,089 hectares in Spain, the Maresmas de Ilha Cristina, and, in Portugal, the Reserva Natural de Sapel de Castro Marum e Vila Real de Santo Antonio. They give a valued nature conservation character to the region. Human impact in Spain. 3 autonomous communities, Castilla-La Mancha, Extremadura and Andalucia, are crossed by the Guadiana. Meanwhile, in Portugal the river crosses the regions of Alentejo and Algarve, and the districts of Portalegre, Evora, Bejar and Faro. Dams. There are over 30 dams on the river basin. The following are the dams on the Guadiana River itself. Alcava Dam, the largest dam, located near Mora in the Bejar district, responsible for the largest reservoir in Western Europe. The Alcava Reservoir occupies an area of 250 square kilometers, with the capacity for 4,150 cubic hectometers. Garcia Sola Reservoir, Sigera Reservoir, El Vicario Reservoir, Orellana Reservoir,